Hey, Matt. How much has training camp practices changed for these next 3 days of practice? Is it the same, or is it more of a Vikings emphasis? And is there any message to the players as far as this is your last shot at things, those bubble guys?
Yeah, we're still going to have some competitive periods where we're going to work on some things, but then we'll also transition, do some carded periods that are going to be more focused on the Vikings.
Wes Hodquist.
Hey, good afternoon, Matt. We had Lucas Patrick on a little bit earlier, and he mentioned something that really stood out to me about, he thinks that this year, especially in his role, availability is going to be his best ability. With what he gives you as a guard and a center, how beneficial is that in terms of what he is able to sort of step into, and especially the experience that he has now going into year 4?
Yeah, I think any time that you show that versatility to play either guard position or the center position, it definitely brings more value to your team. He's a guy that we know we can count on. Anytime that he goes in, he does his job, and he does it at a high level. So he's a guy that we feel and have a lot of confidence in.
Aaron Nagler.
Coach, up to this point, I know a lot of what you've been focused on, if not all of it, has been install. How quickly do you turn to the Vikings? You said you're going to be doing cards, and how all in are you when you see a move like the Vikings made late in the day to add a pretty significant player? Do you have to drill down any further into the player specifically, or do you just kind of look at their scheme?
I think it's a combination. I'm familiar with Yannick in terms of when I was in Tennessee, and he is an elite pass rusher. There's no doubt about it. Nathaniel Hackett was on that staff in Jacksonville, so he knows all about him as well. And, it just gives him another great edge rusher to go with him and Hunter.
Jason Wilde.
Hey, Matt. When it comes to all the positional versatility your offense has, I know it's designed to make the simple look complicated, but when it comes to now getting down to the roster, does that give you guys more flexibility that you have guys that can be a tight end, a receiver, an H-back, a fullback, a breath mint? I mean, you've got guys that can do just about everything.
Yeah, no, I think we're always looking and searching for those types of guys that you can plug and play in different spots, and that definitely we've got a few of those players this year. It definitely affords us some luxury and flexibility from an offensive standpoint.
Mark Daniels.
Matt, getting back to the bottom end of the roster, how comfortable do you feel that you've given all of those guys, every opportunity to at least see them and get a read on what they can do? And are there going to be a few of those guys that you still want to get into competitive periods to give them one more hard look?
Yeah, I think we just got to wait and see kind of where we're at in terms health-wise and all that. But we feel pretty confident with the guys that are going to be on this team. And really, when you look at it, the way we're kind of focused on our roster, it's a 69-man roster this year because everybody better be ready to go at a moment's notice with just all the, just everything that's going on with COVID and everything else.
Rob Domofsky.
Hey, Matt, what jumped out at you the most when you guys went back as a staff and as a team and looked at the scrimmage from yesterday?
Well, I mean, there was a lot of great plays on both sides of the ball, and I think I knew that yesterday. But anytime you just want to go back and make sure the guys are on top of the little details, there were some certain situational things that on both sides of the ball that we definitely have to clean up prior to our first game.
Tom Silverstein.
Hey, Matt, what did you think of your pass rush in the scrimmage? And to what degree are you expecting more from them this year?
Yeah, I thought our pass rush was pretty solid. There were a couple times where there was definitely going to be some quarterback hits, if not sacks. And, you don't get to necessarily see that when the quarterbacks are off limits and they're not getting hit. So overall with the pass rush, I thought I was pretty pleased with it.
Jason Wilde.
Matt, kind of following up on Spoon's question there, we've had a lot of offensive-minded head coaches in our time covering the team, and a lot of them, I don't want to throw them under the bus, but during scrimmages like that, they were more concerned about how the offense looked than the defense. And so if the pass rush is successful, they're more pissed about the protection than they are thrilled about the pass rush. I'm wondering, because you alluded to it yesterday with the run game, how have you kind of run that balance, especially with the more time you've tried to spend on defense?
I think that is always the key is you got to look at both sides of it and see what you're doing well on the offensive side and what you need to clean up on the defensive side and vice versa, what we're doing well defensively and what we need to clean up from an offensive standpoint. So I think that's just one of the things that you have to juggle as the head coach, and ultimately it's my responsibility to make sure that both sides of the ball are sound and our players know what to do so that they can go out there and execute and play fast.
MK with WFRV.
Coach, what's been the biggest jump in level of play that you've seen from your wide receiver group as you guys now start to turn your focus towards the Vikings?
Well, I mean, I just think that, again, like I just talked about the details, I feel like it's always there's a comfort level with the guys that are coming back from year two in the system. And I just think the timing, the rhythm of the pass game is much more in sync. It takes repetition for the quarterbacks and the receivers to get on the same page. And I think you're definitely seeing some of that, like I said, year two in the system.
Aaron Nagler.
Coach, I know we on the outside probably have a very loose understanding of what cut down day looks like, but with that day coming up in a couple days, it's a very unusual year. Are you going to be able to meet with guys personally, or are you going to have to cut guys via Zoom?
No, we'll meet with every guy personally. I think you owe that to our players. These guys have put in a lot of hard work. A lot of it was away from the facility, but then you start to develop relationships with these guys, and that's probably my least favorite day. It is my least favorite day of the year because these guys have poured their heart and soul into what they're doing into the game of football. And obviously when you have to make some tough decisions, you're taking somebody's dream away from them potentially, or at least momentarily. So yeah, you definitely want to have those conversations man to man, and I think they've earned it and they deserve it.
Tom Silverstein.
Matt, what's the health of the team coming out of that scrimmage? Are you expecting to be without a number of guys this week, or do you think you'll actually just get some guys back?
Well, that's kind of what we're working through right now, Tom. I don't want to give it away, all of it away. But yeah, certainly there's a couple guys that won't be out there, unfortunately, and we've got to try to get them back as quickly as possible.
Olivia Reiner.
Hi, Matt. Going back to the cut down and the nature of how you're going to have to talk to players, given just approaching Saturday afternoon. How much of it is a goodbye for now and not so much a goodbye period, just given the nature of sort of the pandemic and how that might impact roster building going forward?
Yeah, I think that very well could be the case. You just never know in this league. And unfortunately, injuries are part of this game. And the one thing that you can say about guys that have been in the building, you've been training them for all these months. So if in the unfortunate circumstance that you have an injury, you can feel confident that you've trained somebody the right way, that potentially if they don't get picked up, that they're able to come back in the building and help you.
Rob Domofsky.
Hey, Matt, just on the injuries real quick, is the right tackle situation impacted by that, or are you okay there?
I can definitely tell you're trying to get some nuggets there, Rob.
Jason Wilde.
Not sure how I follow that up. Matt, when you kind of go through what you've seen in the last 2 weeks or so, I'm wondering if there are guys that, and tell me if I'm not understanding this correctly, but you can have veteran guys on this practice squad. It doesn't have any service limitations for 6 of those spots, right? Are you going to have conversations with guys about the idea of sticking around in that kind of a role as opposed to maybe trying to catch on elsewhere? Is that going to be part of the conversations at the cut down?
Well, I think that's always a possibility. Those are discussions that we're going to have ongoing throughout the remainder of the week, and we'll see where we're at health-wise and how that plays into some of these final decisions that, Goody and we have to make.
Bill Huber.
Going back to the O-line, Matt, you've mentioned a few times in camp that you might go all the way up until game week to pick your line. Is that still the case, or do you think you have that figured out?
Oh, I think that's still very much in play right now. We're still working through those combinations, and until we feel like we've got the right 5, we're gonna continue it that way. But even as we progress into the season, just because we pick a certain 5 doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way. You got to go earn your spot each and every day, and we're looking for. I love competition because I do think it elevates people's play, and so that's just kind of how we operate around here.
Jim Ozarski.
Hey, Matt. And again, maybe I don't quite fully understand the changes to the active game day stuff, but does the change to 46 and 48, I mean, how much of that is in your thought process and Goody's thought process as you get to cuts and maybe potential guys you really want to make sure you get back to the practice squad? Since there's obviously some different flexibility there in 2020.
Yeah, I think that always plays a factor into it. You're always looking at what your game day roster is going to be, and sometimes that's dictated by many different variables, injuries being one of them. So that's always in the conversation.
Tom Silverstein.
Adam said that he thought it was best to play some of those rookies, offensive linemen, at one spot and leave them there and let them get comfortable. Do you think that paid off as far as what you've seen?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think you just allow a guy to kind of get, just to your word, comfortable in terms of what they're doing, so you can actually see progress. I think it's tough on these guys, on every player, when you're moving them all over the map, especially up front. So I think we've seen that with just some of the things we've asked some of our veterans to do to move around. It's really hard to gauge that progress that they're making. So I think by leaving a guy in one spot, it just you get to see that progress on a daily basis.
We'll do a few more. Jason Wilde.
Hey, Matt, you said you love competition. So last year you sent only one of your 5 offensive line starters out for that opening preseason game, right? It's Lane Taylor. He's competing with Elton. He staves him off before he gets hurt. Comes back this year, takes a pay cut, competes at that position, and from the looks of it from the outside, he's had a really good camp. What do you think of his competitive streak and the kind of camp he's had?
Yeah, I think Lane is a pro, and he goes out every day and competes to the best of his ability, and he's got a lot of experience and somebody that we know we can count on.
Last one, Mark Daniels. Mark.
Yeah, thanks. Matt, you said you got just a couple more competitive periods, this week, and then you're going to start turning cards and Vikings. So I wondered if I could just get a sense. It seems like Sunday was kind of the crescendo of camp. Just your feeling on the level of preparedness through obviously the most unusual camp hopefully you will ever experience.
Yeah, I think, we feel good about what we've asked our players to do. I feel like the energy level for the most part, minus a couple days late in camp, was spot on with our guys. I feel like they've gotten better. I was particularly pleased with yesterday in terms of just the energy, the effort, the urgency that they displayed. And so, we got to continue that and make sure that after you come off from basically 2 days without practice, that you don't take any steps backwards, that you keep moving forward and you're stacking these days upon days and get your mind right for an opponent that's coming up here in less than 2 weeks.